Today we're going to take our Softneck garlic and do something I've been wanting to try for a long time, fermenting garlic in honey. This is so easy to do, you hardly need a recipe. You need three things: garlic, honey, and a sterilized jar. Both garlic and honey have a strong medicinal properties, so it makes sense to use as an immune booster or if you feel a cold or flu coming on. When combined, the two are excellent. I planted this softneck garlic, and it was the first time I ever planted it. I'll share a link to this video in the description below. But I purchased this in Virginia when we went to the Homesteaders of America conference, and I planted it in the raised bed and let it overwinter. Some of the cloves were fairly good size and some were small. And this is what it looked like right before I harvested it. Overall, I was very satisfied with it. And again, it was the first time I had planted softneck garlic, and this is how it was stored all summer long. The hardest and most time-consuming part is preparing all this garlic. And some of this I waited a little too long. So I'm not going to put any of the bad pieces of garlic in this fermentation. But I'm just going to break the cloves apart to begin with. I'm just going through and sorting them and picking out the good ones and making sure I don't put any in there that's bad. And some of this has already disintegrated, and some of it, I'll show you in just a second, has already started sprouting. So I don't want to put that in my fermentation. Here's a clove that started sprouting. You can either cut around that or just not put in there. Here's one that just is totally dried up to nothing. As I peel this, I'm going to cut the ends off because you want that garlic juice to seep into the honey while it's fermenting. Now, there are several ways out there, and you probably know some that I don't, to peel this garlic. As I said, that's the most time-consuming part of this process, is getting this garlic peeled. The bigger ones are a lot easier than the smaller ones. And here I'm just cutting off a bad spot. This has where it's starting to sprout, so I'm going to cut around that because I don't want any of that in this fermentation. I tried the traditional knife method where you place the clove on your cutting board, place the flat part of your wide knife over it, and press down with gentle pressure. You don't want to squash the clove entirely. And I found this worked okay for the larger cloves, but for the smaller ones, I ended up just crushing them. And you do want just it bruised just lightly. You want that garlic to release some of its juices, and this aids in the start of the fermentation. I've also seen where you could place the garlic cloves in a bowl and pour very hot water over them, let them soak for about a minute, and then remove the peels. The best way I found was this silicone tube that I had bought, probably a couple years ago. And you can also, if you have a silicone mat, you can do that also. Just place your cloves in the silicone, fold, and rub back and forth. The friction causes the peel to come off the cloves. It takes a firm amount of pressure, but it's really easy. I did try putting 2 or 3 cloves in there at one time, and that didn't seem to work as well as just putting 1 clove. Now, after I got through peeling these, my hands was rather filthy, so I did decide I needed to give this garlic a quick wash. And then I'm going to let it dry really well on a paper towel so that I don't include any of this water in my ferment. You can use whatever size jar you wish. I'm using a 1/2 gallon. And for that, you want to use about 1/2 to 3/4 full of peeled garlic. Now, your honey needs to be raw, unpasteurized honey. It will not work if it's not raw, as the microbes will have been killed off in the pasteurization process. Now, I'm going to start out by pouring some honey in the bottom and then layering this as I go. Now, it's going to float up to the top somewhat, but of all the videos I watched in doing this, they said it was easier to layer it than to wait till the end and pour the honey over the top and wait for it to seep down. When liquid is added to honey, it jump starts the fermentation process. The small amount of juice from the garlic will create just enough liquid for the fermentation to happen. Now, I've seen this used in marinades and sauces, as a glaze for meat and vegetables. If you're feeling a little cold or sore throat coming on, you can eat one of the honey-soaked garlic cloves, or just eat a spoonful of the garlic-infused honey. Use it on salad dressings, marinades, dribble it over goat cheese. I've even seen it put on pizza. The honey garlic needs to ferment for about a month, but after about 2 weeks, you can eat it at any time during the process. The flavor will continue to develop over time, the garlic will mellow, and the honey will become more liquefied. You want to store the jar of fermented garlic and honey in a cool, dark place away from direct sunshine. You want to use an airtight lid and don't allow any moisture to enter the jar, and the garlic can last up to a year. To leave a little headspace, as some batches may form more than others and cause overspill. The garlic can take some time to sink in the mixture as it releases its juices into the honey. Usually depends on how fresh it is. It should eventually sink. The aim at the beginning is for the garlic to be covered by as much honey as possible to prevent spoilage. So you can see here how it's floated to the top. So I'm going to tighten this lid, and every day I'll burp it by unscrewing the lid just ever so slightly and then flip it over. Now, during this process, I did not tighten my lid one time, and some of my honey leaked out on the counter. It was a mess. So I do highly encourage to make sure your lid is on there good. For 2 weeks, you'll need to burp the jar daily. To do this, open the lid to allow any buildup of gases to release and then close. Shake it or stir it, turn it upside down, and set aside again. Listen closely on the next clip for the burping sound. I hope you try this recipe, and if you hadn't bought your garlic yet for this year, we still have a little bit on our website. Thanks, and I'll catch you next time.